Hi. Today I'm going to do things backwards again and do an interview with somebody and put it out over the traditional mediums later. Let the interwebs get it first. Um, I've got a guest lined up and he's having some technical difficulties. Everything was working fine all day, but as with many times with the show, right up to the wire, something doesn't work. His name is Dave McCubbin. He has a background in corporate speaking, and he does a bunch of stuff. But especially that I want to talk to with him about is mainly career placement, job things, resumes, things of that nature. I did that many years ago. I've spoken with people about it who've done it more currently using LinkedIn and things like that. But I think, given the current circumstances, everybody would like to hear from somebody that speaks on that topic, because 1/3 of this country is going to not go back to their jobs because of many reasons, some of which their jobs won't be there. People are going to have to adjust what they do in the middle of their life. It's going to be difficult for everybody. So any hint, any tip can help with that. We also have a problem. A constant complaint of mine is as you get older, they just don't support the older workforce. They don't recognize the value of it, and they'd rather hire a kid out of school and pay him less, of course. And they don't care about turnover, loyalty as much as they used to. There aren't as many careers. It's going to be a generation where people don't retire from things. It's already started. You don't have a career, you have a job. And that's a sad thing because loyalty is lost in the middle. And we're losing too much loyalty and focus all around in this world. It's just happening in so many ways. Career being only one of them. I see many people that during this event are at home, and they don't want to go back to work necessarily. They don't want to go back to work. So it's interesting. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think you need a mix. You need to be at home. You need to be at work. You need to be both. I think right now people want to get out of the house. I think you need that dynamic. I think you need it for dealing with people. You need that to grow as an individual. You need that to get your skills together. I don't think you are the same employee at home. I think there's a mix, and I think you should age out of work and into the house. But I don't think you should go from college right to working from home. I don't think it helps with people skills. I don't think it helps with development. The things that do help in this world right now are things like your LinkedIns and things of that nature. I know people that have been incredibly successful with LinkedIn and making contacts with people. They're more gig jobs and things of that nature, but they've showed success, and that's something to be noted. The it's interesting that there's economic numbers that say that we have more people employed, or we had prior to the event. And I always refer to this thing as an event because I don't want to give it a name. I don't want to feed into it. But we had more people employed. We did, but we didn't have people employed in careers. We had them in gigs and jobs. That's why the word gig has become popular again, gig worker, because we had people that were working 3 jobs. We had people that over 50 were making less money than they were making 20 years ago. Those aren't good things. The people that are comfortable and secure still at the top of the pile, that number is lessening and lessening, and the people in the middle are terrified because they don't want to end up like the people at the bottom. So that's become a major concern of many people out there in this day and age. The it's, I don't know what kind of thing the uh, what kind of job you're involved in, but this is going to impact you. We'll talk with him. Hopefully, we'll help you. We'll see where this goes. I may do a cut at 28 minutes or so that we can edit it for the other show. And I see the guest popping in now. We'll give a minute to set up, and then we'll go into talking a little bit about careers and guidance in these tumultuous times, and we'll do a little bit of after show maybe. And I'll bring him in, and hopefully he's ready. Hi, Dave. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah. Technical difficulties.
Sorry about that. I'm embarrassing.
There you are.
Is it coming in now?
Yep, you're right there.
Yeah, man. Sorry about that. Everything seemed to cooperate on my side, but just didn't work over here. So sorry about that.
Hey, the internet has been and technology has been pretty good over this event, so I'm not going to knock it because it's held up really pretty well.
Yeah, you know what's funny, man? I had everything up and running, and next thing you know, my AVG decided to go and update, and sometimes every now and then, of course, it stomps on my internet connection. So
yeah,
cool.
I had the same thing with Dropbox syncing a bunch of stuff. I decided I wanted to resync a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, not going to win that one. So sorry. Can you hear me all right, man? Am I coming through okay?
No, you're fine. You're fine. I see you're either with a classic home studio or you're in the back of a moving van heading to Wichita.
No, man, no white
blanket.
No white vans tonight. I'm actually in the home studio. I got humbly said I got my DPX processor right here, my pre-Sonos microphone, the whole 9 yards. So I break this out every now and then when I really need like a nice quiet area, but hopefully it'll work tonight. So we'll see what we get.
No, you're doing fine.
Thanks,
I just did a quick overview, if we could talk a little bit about what you do and maybe a little focus on career guidance in these times, because people are unsure. We're about 8 minutes in the show. In about 22 minutes, I have to take a quick break. Then we do a little after show, and then that goes for however long. But this is going to end up on the radio. I'm doing things backwards because of the event. But
no worries. Sorry to leave you guys hanging. It wasn't my intent. Sorry about that.
No, I can talk to myself for hours.
There you go. There you go.
But Dave McCubbin, thank you very much for coming, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, in a nutshell, Mark, I've been doing corporate training for just about 25 years or so. The bulk of what I do is software training. That was the bulk of my career. Recently, in the past few years, I moved more into what we call soft skills or business development skills, things on those lines. So soft skills, organizational development skills kind of mean the same thing. That's been the bulk of what I've been doing, and more to a focused answer. Ironically, I've been doing a lot of work with people that have been regrettably let go in their jobs past couple months. So that's sort of been what I'm doing.
Well, you've kind of been warming up for this because you're certainly going to get more of that. I was just saying.
I'm sorry, and if I can say, it's something I don't want to deal with. I was, prior to becoming a corporate trainer, I was in the investment business for roughly 10 years. And I always tell people I went through the ringer. It was constant stop and start. Companies were either downsizing or letting go or things along those lines. So I can really empathize with people that have been, laid off or having a speed bump in their career. And, it's one of those things, to be blunt with you, Mark. I feel bad for these people, and it's at the point where I kind of wish I didn't have to do these kind of trainings, because if you see what I'm saying, because they're trying to get back on their feet, up and running. And with this whole current events, it's probably going to get worse. And I kind of wish I didn't have to do these type of sessions, if that makes any sense to you. Hopefully it's coming through okay.
Yeah, no. Your audio went in and out a little bit, but I get the message. But basically, it's an odd time, because I think that when this is over, I think that 1/3 of the places that are closed roughly one third of people won't be going back to the same thing they left, because of changes at the job, because the job doesn't exist, the company doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's kind of the shame of it. I'm a big, no, I'll say it, I'm a big civil liberties guy. I'm also a very big small business guy. I think small businesses are basically the engine that drive this country. And when I see smaller companies struggling, no matter what they're doing, I really empathize for the owners, empathize for the employees, because that's their paycheck. And it's just sad all the way around. I don't like to see so many people unemployed or things along those lines. It's just horrible. It really is.
I did a little blurb about the. I really had this fear that this bailout was going to be, it was going to be skimmed off of the top, and we were going to start to see the flaws in it where it goes the wrong way and gets allocated for different things. And I saw Ruth Chris's Steakhouse got $20 million.
Yeah.
And that just, I understand their business. They have 5,000 employees and they help the economy, but I just think that we should have somebody should be prioritizing it. I think, it would be better to take that 20 million and help, 200 small businesses sustain for a year.
Ironically, I was in the grocery store the other week, and it was one of those inadvertent eavesdropping type of a thing where you're just standing there, just waiting in line and waiting for something to happen. I happened to overhear a conversation of a gentleman who was talking to a friend of his he happened to cross paths with at the store. And really what he was saying was he had just sold his truck to sort of maintain his company, how he was talking about how bad it was getting. And the interesting thing was he mentioned that even though he's applying for these small business loans that are available through the government, which I think is a good thing, he said, and it's just from what he said, it was the bureaucracy that he has to deal with. Or put a different way, he said a lot of what he has to deal with is when he gets his loan, it will not be available until later this year. And the question is, will he be able to survive until, say, November, December, when the money actually comes through? And I never thought of it that way. I was like, wow, that's really not good. No,
because they are helping you, but they're not getting the timeliness. It's like,
correct.
It's bad optics. It's like you send the hospital ship to New York or Los Angeles, but because of bureaucracy, you only have 15 people on it. It's the intentions are good, but the execution sucks.
You're right. And my sarcastic side, my charming cynicism, as I say, government inefficiency is a complete oxymoron. So I'll stop there before I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with any of that. I just, I think that it's easy to sit back and Monday morning quarterback, and I do disaster services work, and that happens a lot. But there's a lot of things in this situation where it's obvious issues where you have questions because people didn't have a plan in place, and it shows. But we paid millions of dollars to have plans in place that weren't executed, reviewed, utilized, or whatever, better or worse. And I fear that we're going to. Repeat this again, and these cycles are coming quicker now. It seems, we're having once in a lifetime events, every 20 years or so.
Yeah, it's sad. There's a lot. I think it's very easy to finger point at people. Excuse me. That said, you can say what you want about government efficiencies or inefficiencies. To be blunt with you, my biggest fear in all this, Mark, without getting too far off the beaten path, is panic. When panic starts kicking in, if it does, I think that's going to cause a real problem, because that's when the real issue starts. You just don't know what people are going to do. Desperation seeps in. And I truly hope we don't get to that phase. That's really what makes me nervous in all this stuff. And that's why I really hope things, the vast majority of us probably do as well, that things open up rather soon. So who knows?
Right. It's one of those cases where the response can be worse than the event.
Exactly.
And we've got to control our response and want to be better for next time. It's like they just in Pennsylvania, they for the fifth time or so have firmed up the rules for wearing masks, and it's totally confusing. And what I think is that it should be a simple requirement that if you have a business that is open, even if it's an essential business that's open, or a business that's going to be open in the second wave, that you need to have masks and PPE for your employees. It's plain and simple. That's a no-brainer. And if they want to say no mask, you can't come in the store, that's fine. But give people a way to get that first wave of mask. But if they want to enforce it and make it a hard press rule, then do it across the board. It's not this quasi thing.
I agree. And that's where people get frustrated, because it's one of those things that You go to one place, it's not a problem. The other place you walk into, it's like literally getting in Fort Knox is easier. I know, for instance, the other day I went to a local sandwich shop, and I called them. I said, well, what's your procedures? And I happen to know the staff there. They're really good people. And they said, Dave, you can do whatever you want. You just can't eat here. So it's basically come in, order, not a problem. I know other places you have to stand outside. They'll do curbside service, etc. So who knows? It's kind of crazy.
So what do you think people will be looking at? I know that you can't predict, and we talked about it a little bit, but what do you think challenges people will be facing when this is over job-wise? How can they mitigate things, and how does it – I mean, how old are you roughly?
I'm sorry?
How old are you?
I'm north of 50 years old. I'm 51. Shh, don't tell anybody that.
That's rough. Once you climb over that 50 hump, you could just lay there and rest. And then you wake up about at 52.
It's funny. I still think I'm 25. Mentally, I'm somewhere around 16, judging by if you ask my wife and kids. I refuse to grow up. My Peter Pan syndrome's alive and well. Sorry. I don't think it's ever going to change. But, some days I feel it. It's no fun.
I'm exactly the same way, but the way you test somebody's age is you just throw their car keys under the center of the car. Then their real age comes out. Young people will roll under and come out the other side. Other people just go.
Yeah. Very true.
So you might understand this question a little bit more with the in general with going back. Well, people are living longer. We have a slightly older workforce, and I think that as growing into that workforce, I see that it's much more difficult to get employment as you get older because people don't want to pay you, and they're instantly threatened by your experience, or you've got to act so stupid that you aren't of value. People get too threatened too easily because as you get older, you're dealing with younger people. How would you guide people in a post-50, post-apocalyptic world to
Sure. So I'm interpreting you as talking about ageism. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Well, first off, I guess let's address it this way. Does ageism exist? Absolutely. I can say definitively I've been quote unquote victimized by it. Do I cry about it? No. It just is what it is. Not trying to elevate myself. I'm just saying that I've experienced it, say la vie. I guess a couple things come to mind. Number one, when it comes to dealing with the age barriers, let's just be honest and just be brutal and get a couple things on the table. Number one, there's going to be some stereotyping that some people are going to do, of which you just alluded to. They'll view you a certain way. They might view you as wanting too much money or so much money. They may view you as being too stoic, not willing to change, things on those lines, et cetera, et cetera. It's their own internal bias. Fine. Everybody's guilty of that. That said, really dealing with the age barrier, I feel, is not to make it an issue. So wherever that ism is, you don't really want to acknowledge it. Put a different way, probably the easy way for your audience to sort of getting over the age barrier is one of two things. The first thing is you want to tell people that you are adaptable. Humbly said, the secret to my quote unquote longevity in my line of work is I've always been up to date on most current technologies. Not that I wanted to learn this stuff, because frankly, I'm getting a little tired of it, but don't tell me by that. But it's one of the things where I don't have a choice. I have to be up to date or I'm out of date. And if I'm out of date, I'm just yesterday's news. So there's value in being adaptable and you're being current. And the other one is you have to tell people you're okay with change. That's the other stereotype that sometimes people have is when they view you as older, you're more rigid, you're more unwilling to be flexible, or lack of a better term. And in that willingness to adapt to change, there's merit in that. For instance, over my wife's company, I won't tell you who it is. The story she told me was there was a branch where, the company rolled out a brand new policy and said, here's the way it's going to be. A group of stalwarts came together and said, you know what? Nah, sorry, we've been doing this for 20 some odd years. We're not going to change. Heck with it. Well, sadly, the group of people that decided to hold out, they're no longer there. And, the lesson there is, well, okay, you want to make sure that you're okay with adapting and okay with change, because if not, you're disposable. So hopefully you can kind of see the answer I'm driving inside there.
Mm-hmm. So see that's completely counter to me, because I just instantly lead with I don't like change. I don't, but I accept the necessity of it.
Yeah.
Uh, I accept the necessity of it.
Mhm.
If and I think that's realistic for me. I don't embrace change. If you know if you want to
Yeah.
think you look at the music you listen to,
Uh,
you know, or turn
well,
on Saturday Night Live and see how old and grumpy you can be and how many milliseconds you turned it
oh,
off. I don't recognize anybody.
Mark, I'm stuck in the 80s. I'll admit it. I don't care. Best music ever. Back my head hair. No, but let me do my standard spiel with something I didn't get a chance to say to you earlier. Sorry. One thing I always try to tell people, Mark, in all seriousness, is that my way is not the only way. A lot of ways to look at the job market, a lot of ways to interpret things. And I always like to present people with options just because I think every interview is unique in its own right. So phrased differently, some persons will say use this tactic always. Other people say use this tactic always. I don't think that's quite the right answer. I always feel the best way to handle it is, you know what, learn a bunch of ways to adapt and try to apply it to their own individual circumstance. Um, so basically, what I'm really trying to tell people is, if I say something contrary, that's fine. My goal is not to take away and say you were trained wrong, just train differently. And that's always been one of my mantras, which is um, to add to what you already know. That's really where I'm coming from.
Say that again. It faded out the last thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, what I meant to say was, if my goal is never to take away from the way you were trained, or put a different way, you weren't trained wrong, just trained differently. So my goal has always been to add to what you know, never to take away and say you were trained wrong. That's not appropriate in my view.
Okay.
That come
Okay.
through okay?
Um, with the growing with the way the market's going to change, and
Mhm.
this is uncharted waters. It's amplified beyond belief. How will things like LinkedIn and stuff help people?
Well, great question. I personally am a LinkedIn junkie. I'll admit to that. Um, there's a couple ways to approach it. I'll take it from the way I was taught, and people can agree or disagree. Um, my old roommate from college was at LinkedIn before LinkedIn became LinkedIn. Now, what exactly does that mean? He was at LinkedIn when LinkedIn was still perceived as like a monster type of a thing. If you remember those days, people would ask you what LinkedIn is, and they thought it was just like monster. You put your resume up there, and that was it. Um, and his job was to get LinkedIn to not be viewed or perceived as that type of monster-ish type of resume posting site. So the point being is, fast forward a couple of years, he actually called me up one day and he said, "Dave, I figured out the algorithm." I'm like, "What's that?" And here's the question I ask people. If I always ask people, I say, "What's LinkedIn?" And I get a whole bunch of different responses. And I always tell people you can summarize LinkedIn in two simple words. LinkedIn's a search engine. That's really what it is. People don't view it that way, but you can make a strong case that's really what it is. So if you think about it, most people, when they go to LinkedIn, in the upper left-hand side is a search bar. You click up there and you start searching for people, jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And what recruiters and hiring managers will do is they will search with various keywords. And if you go back to what I just mentioned about my old roommate from college, he said that he figured out the algorithm. And what he meant by that was he would integrate and inject certain key terms in his profile. And the key terms that he used were not the ones he used to describe himself. So what he did one day is he put himself in the mind of a recruiter or of a hiring manager, and then he said, "Okay, if I was a recruiter, what words would I use?" And he's in the PR business, and the way I understand the PR business is certain titles mean certain things. They're not generic titles that can just be interchangeable. They have very specific meanings. So he started adding those titles, and then over time he played with combinations, and he saw his search results rise. Actually, to the point where he got a job with GSI Commerce. They actually called him, and this is before GSI got bought out by eBay. Um, they actually called him up and said, "Hey, your name keeps popping up. Do you want to talk to us?" And the side conversation I had with him was, he said, I'm not that good from a PR perspective. I mean, he's good, don't get me wrong. But really what drove it was the keywords he used. So if you kind of visualize this, go back to my original point. LinkedIn is a search engine, and people started searching with various derivatives and some variations of keywords. He kept popping up. So put in a simple way, he was playing the Google game. And then all of a sudden, once he kept popping up in results, they said, hey, this guy must be credible. They reached out to him. There he is. So through that long story I just told you, sorry to bore you with that. I always advocate to people, use certain keywords that people will look for you by. And then the other thing you want to do is make sure you tell your story in LinkedIn. I jokingly say the kiss of death in LinkedIn is when people do a copy and paste on their resume. And it's just their resume there in the profile or the about section. There's nothing there to really differentiate you from anybody else. So it really boils down to, and again, this is my perspective. Somebody could tell you something completely contrary, which is fine. What happens is, if you tell your story, it's okay to be transparent and let people know who you are as a person. I think that really gives some validity to who you are. You don't have to be so stoic and corporate, dare I say. So those are the two things that I do. And then the other thing I recommend people do is when you connect with somebody, always send them a note saying, thank you very much for connecting. I look forward to meeting with you. And then the magic sentence is you put somewhere in the bottom that says, if I can be of any assistance to introduce you to anyone in my network, please let me know. And the idea there is you're not doing this whole full court press slimy sales tactic, which most people do, which is, thanks for connecting. Do you know somebody who can give me a job? No, you're taking an approach of give to get. So you're really saying, you know what? Nice to meet you. Can I help you out? And that's a good way to build relationships. That way you kind of are building a rapport or not advertising the fact you're looking for something. That makes any sense to you?
Yeah, no.
That's my perspective.
No, I see LinkedIn changing a little bit, and sometimes I feel like it's on the brink of becoming more of a social media than an employment thing. And I see some people, I think, really hurting themselves by putting their personal or political beliefs up there. It's not. I don't think that's what it's for.
I tend to agree with that. My ironically, one of the guys that mentored me out of the Atlanta area just did a what do you call it? He called it the LinkedIn loonies, I think. Where what would happen was the people would reach out and connect with you. They would start doing like, hey, let's do business or something along those lines. And you could tell it's just some automated spam type email. Mm-hmm. And then I know for a while there, my own personal pet peeve was, and this sounds terrible, sorry. They would put these very stale motivational slogans that you would just see over and over again, like, attitudes, everything, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, guys, this is the best you got. Give me something original. And I'm sorry, that's just my cynical view of life. And I tend to agree with your point, which is, people are getting a little more political or religious, and that's fine. That's the perspective, but recognize there's a certain backfiring which could occur. To me, I try to walk that fine line of let's do some business type stuff. Let's have a little fun. I'm sort of a wise guy, as you could probably tell. But, then again, I don't think once you get too far on the spectrum one way or the other, you could really alienate your audience, which I don't think that's the place to do. And I hope LinkedIn doesn't go that way, meaning just become this giant, well, I'll say it. I think Twitter sucks. I think Twitter's just awful. Sorry. It's just been spammed to death, and it's just, there's really no value in it. I think LinkedIn's incredibly powerful, but I think you're on the right path. If it gets worse, people are going to start leaving. So hopefully that won't happen.
Okay. Well, we actually ran through our first half hour.
Oh man, that's just me babbling. That's what I do. Sorry.
I'm gonna do a quick cut here and come back to you, and then we'll do some after show.
Yeah, sure. Am I still live, or did I do okay for you?
Yeah, you did fine. I'll take you off for 1 second.
Sure, no worries.
We're talking to Dave, and we're talking about employment, and we're going to go into a little bit of after show here, and we're back.
No, sorry about that. I have my coffee cup sitting here to the side. Sorry, it's 7:30 at night. I'm still drinking coffee.
Before we do, yeah, you'll get to bed early tonight. Yeah. Right before we went and did the little cut there, you talked about Twitter, and it's funny. I find people that swear by Twitter. I find people that swear by Instagram. I think it depends on what you want to do, and whatever you like shows your age. I find that, I'm a MySpace guy, or Friendster. What happened to Friendster? Twitter had so much potential, and it
It
just
did. It really did. And I guess there is some merit to Twitter. I guess in my view, I'm not a big Twitter guy. I'm not a celebrity, so who the heck am I? I truly think most people get recognized by tweets is A, if you're a celebrity, or B, if you say something controversial one way or the other. Sadly, I think that's going to sound awful. I think it's eroded into a cesspool.
Mhm.
And that's just my view. I don't mean to rip the platform. I'm sure some people really enjoy it. For me, I don't like that. When it comes to a marketing thing, I think a good way to do it is look at all the channels that are out there and then maximize maybe 2 or 3 of them. So let's say you could get some traffic out of, say, let's say there's 10 platforms out there you're examining. Pick your 2 or 3 top ones and go with those. So if you get them from, say, Pinterest or Instagram or LinkedIn, stay there. Don't bother with Twitter. Don't bother with Facebook. You can get too lost in stuff and it just becomes inefficient.
Yeah, and I just think that these things don't realize they're under the burden of their own success,
Yeah.
which I think will
Absolutely.
destroy them if it just gets out of control. It
Mm.
kind of becomes like we're so saturated with information that I think we're going to go back to just wanting to listen to wax records on Victrolas, and that's it, because we're just getting too much.
It's funny. You were talking about age earlier, and I used to be a part-time swimming coach until I had to resign. But I always like to make these references during the classes where I teach, like classes on ageism. And I always tell people, I said, you know what? I like being in this room because I can make references like 8-track tapes, and I can mention the original Gong Show and things like that. And they actually know what I'm talking about. If I go up to a 22-year-old and I say, hey, do you know what the numbers 45, 33, 30, 78 mean? They have no clue.
Right.
I'll wait till you do.
Well, it's funny. So you teach something on ageism.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's part of this. It's part of the sessions that Montgomery County teaches. So what happens over at Montgomery County, where I do the bulk of this type of training, they offer various classes. One's on like resume, building a resume. The other one's on LinkedIn. The other one's on how to handle ageism. That answer I gave you earlier was really the dollar tour of the entire class. So yeah, because I mean, it's one of those things that age is very interesting, and I found out that from my own perspective, if you don't draw attention to your age, people are less inclined to make it an issue. So phrased differently, when I was working with some of those younger kids over at the YMCA, I can talk a lot younger. That's because I listen to people. And people actually asked me, they said, well, how do you get away with this? I'm like, well, it's because I don't make references that make me out to be an old guy. I'll talk more modern. Like if you want to talk like a more modern music artist, I can sort of talk about that. So I try to be familiar with what the youth is doing. So hopefully it's making some sense. I guess to put it another way, I try not to make my age my issue by not even acknowledging, saying, you know what? Well, let's put it this way. I had a couple of kids come up to me and they said, hey, Coach Dave, how old are you? And my question to them was, how old do you think I am? Because I wanted to know. And they go, I don't know, you're kind of old. You're like 27, 28, 32, 35, no higher than 35. And they're my new best friends. I'm like, you guys are awesome. And then when I tell them my age, they're like, there's no way. I'm like, yeah, I am. But, it's one of those things I try not to make my age an issue, if that makes any sense to you. I just try to work right around it so it's not even coming up.
And I agree with you, but I am completely unsuccessful with that because it's so easy to get frustrating with people by saying things like, "Could you please stop looking at the phone and pay attention? I'm trying to tell you something," or
Yeah.
just different things. And it's just one of my favorite things for setting me off and turning me into grumpy old man is when you tell somebody something, they say, well, could you remind me to tell you that? No, I'm not. I'm not doubling back and reminding you. And we're not going to text each other reminders to remind each other. I'm telling you, and that's it.
It's funny. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, this is really getting bad because my daughter was sitting in the exact same room with me, and I had to get her attention. I literally texted her right across the room. And I looked at my wife. I said, is this what's come to? I'm actually texting something I could actually verbalize to my daughter. And my wife just shook her head and said, yeah. So whatever.
It's a
Uh,
shame because it's this non-biological, it's this digital version of autism that's happening, where we're mimicking all the isolated behaviors.
mhm.
The machine is kind of teaching us. We're
Yeah,
getting locked in.
it's funny. I talked to. I'm going to sort of see if I can recap a conversation. A little while ago, I actually had a conversation with somebody who worked with college students that were trying to get a job. And obviously, folks, of our age, if I'd be sitting here and let's see here, where is it? If I was on an interview with you and I'd be going like this the whole time, odds are you're probably going to throw me out. So what happened was the person who was interviewing, their body language was such that they were slouching, eye contact was down here, really not, conducive to a good conversation. And the person who was trying to help the student figure out how the corporate world works and how the interviewing world works didn't think they were getting through. So this person thought they failed. And the ironic thing was, after the session, she felt she was a failure because she didn't help the student. Here, the student actually sent her a text and said, "Hey, by the way, that was a phenomenal session. I really learned a lot from it." So it's one of those things, those nonverbal cues. So if I'd be sitting here talking, I couldn't believe that. I'm like, what, really? So maybe I'm missing that, of which I'll admit, but I don't know. I'm more the standpoint of, I tell my daughter, I said, listen, if you want to stay on your phone, that's fine. But you've got to learn how to communicate to people. You got to maintain eye contact. You got to talk. You got to be respectful. You can't sit there on your phone, put in their face and things like that, because it just does not jive, especially the people who are paying your paychecks.
If you have an established relationship and you want to do the phone thing, it's a little more acceptable. Because I'll sometimes somebody else ask me something. If you're on your phone and I'm asking you a question, you're going, huh? What? Oh, my bad. Huh? What? That's fine. But if I'm asking you a question and you're answering it, and you're just looking up for a second, looking back down, it's like, okay, he's in the middle of something. This is the way he communicates, but he's multitasking. And I was at the checkout line, and the guy was on his phone, and I said, "Do you want me to come back later because you seem to be tied up with that non-work thing?" And he said, "No, I'm multitasking." I said, "No," I said, "You're doing two things poorly. That's different than multitasking."
I agree. It's funny from my martial arts perspective. I learned one thing: the human body can only react to one stimulus at a time. You can't do both. It's one or the other. You can jump in between, but it's not simultaneous. At least that's my understanding of it. So I tend to agree with your statement on that one.
Yeah, really multitasking is an illusion. It's just doing one thing at a time fast.
Yeah, your focal points always jump between one or the other. It's like you can't do both. If you can, I'm impressed, but no.
How do you feel about things like photos on resumes? Is that still a no-no unless you're an actor or going into some such profession?
Well, I tend to think not. That's just me.
Right.
One of the things that I have been researching a lot is I always try to stay up to date with current job trends, just because obviously the class I teach. And the interesting thing is, if you Google the phrase modern resume formats, one of my mantras, Mark, is that whenever you're looking for a job, you're not in the job searching business, you're in the marketing business. And what do I mean by that? The mistake that most people make on their resumes is they try to put everything on their resume, and their goal is to get their job. That's not the right goal. The goal should be to get them the interview, and so they get the job. So I always tell people, you want to try to craft your resume in such a way that somebody looks at it and says, yes, get that person in here now. So I call literally call my resume my marketing brochure. It's literally what I call it. And people go, what? And I basically say, listen, you got to write it in such a way that they stop to look at it. If it's boring, you're gone. So back to my point of modern resume formats, if you Google that phrase and look at a lot of the more modern trends, you'll see they're more kind of flyer-ish. They have like a more fancy background to it. They actually do look like actual literally flyers, like marketing flyers people put out, but they don't have their photos on them. And I found that to be somewhat interesting. And I guess somewhere in there, and I'm probably missing something of which I'll admit, putting a photo on your resume could work as a detriment, because they can look at you and go, this guy's too old, forget it, I don't want that, I don't want this person, they look funny. And it's maybe a bias in there, I don't know. I wouldn't do it personally. That's just not me.
I have different versions of my resume, none with a photo, but I do have, like you were talking about flyer, I have one that's almost like an infographic.
Oh,
where
cool.
it covers your achievements in different
Mm,
areas and
yep.
everything. And because I think that people only have, you got 3 seconds tops to grab their
Agreed.
attention on
Yep.
there. And,
Hmm.
and the thing that I've heard people saying, and I haven't done it quite myself, is they started taking dates off of things
Hmm.
because have them ask you the question instead of being prejudiced about your age,
Yeah.
because doing some math.
Yeah, and I agree. The general rule of thumb, and I'm going to sound like a complete hypocrite here in a couple seconds, of which I will admit, because honestly, because people ask me these kinds of questions, and I said every circumstance is different, and I tell them I always play the marketing game every single time, and people aren't sure what I mean by that. Let me see if I can phrase an example for you. So let's just say hypothetically, I go to apply for a job, and there happens to be a LaSalle alumni there. I went to LaSalle University, whoop-de-doo. Um, if there's a LaSalle alumni there, someone who I researched through LinkedIn, if they're there, I'll admit it. I'll look at the picture of the photo of their photo and say, I wonder how old this person is. If they're close to my age, what I'll do is I will put my year of graduation on my resume. The game I'm playing there is I'll say, well, this person might look at that and go, wow, this guy was here the same time I was. Maybe he knew ... So I'm trying to build that connection that way. By contrast, if I happen to see the person went to LaSalle, I'll put the university on there, but I will not put my year of graduation there. And the reason for that is I'm trying to play the, hey, you went there, I went there game. And again, there's a lot of pros and cons that come out of it. It's just a decision I make. By and large, though, I don't put my year of graduation on there just because, the jig is up. They'll figure out how old you are. So it like I said, every circumstance is different.
Is it a safe thing to tell people that it's almost crazy to think you can have one format of your resume?
Yes.
You have to have more than one.
Yeah. What'll happen is a lot of people, well, as you know, the more you work, the more your resume grows. And one of the things we try to advocate is we create what we call a base resume. And when I think of a base resume as being a hub and spoke, the base resume is never going to see the light of day. It's literally a long document of all your work history. So let's say your work history takes up, say, 5 pages, Mark, just hypothetically. You want to write down all your work, all your achievements, everything. And then when you go to apply for a job, the idea is you open up that base resume or that hub, and then you extract out the parts to create a new resume. So the idea is you're just pulling out the parts that are relevant for the job you're applying for, aka creating another marketing brochure, brand new one, and submitting that. So to put that in context, if someone goes to apply for a job and they have, say, a corporate training background, and they've also developed a digital marketing background along the way, the people that are hiring you could care less about your corporate training background. They want to see your digital marketing background. So when you submit the resume, the idea is just put on the relevant stuff to the job itself, the digital marketing piece. And then when you get the interview, that's when you crack out your 10 layers of, hey, I can do this, look at my corporate training, look at my writing skills, blah, blah, blah. If that makes some sense to you. So I always tell people, think hub and spoke. You have to create a long resume, extract out the important parts, and create a brand new resume. Granted, it is time consuming, but it's much more effective.
Do you have a favorite resume app or anything of that nature? I've seen a couple that haven't quite hit the mark that try to, and what they do is what you said there, you put in all your information and they allow you to tweak it on the fly with having your information as a kind of resource. And they're not there yet, but I haven't found one that's there yet. Because you should be able to just put it in. I don't even like the whole concept of the resume, because what frustrates me is that if you fill out, and it's gotten worse in modern times, you fill out online all this stuff, and then you send a copy of your resume as an attachment, and then you fill out additional stuff, then you bring a copy of your resume when you go, and it just seems redundant. It seems like there should be a place where you can go and have your resume stored, and if you apply at a company, you can send them a link, and they could just pull it all from one repository.
There's your brand new website for you, Mark. You could probably make $1 million off that idea. Who knows? Charge somebody $1 to post your
I got a million ideas I do nothing with.
You watch somebody will hijack this one and say thank you very much, right?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I agree with you. Twofold answer. I have a couple versions of my resume. The one that seems to work well for me is if you kind of imagine like a table with rows. Um, the row, the top row has my name. Then I have what I call a value proposition statement, which is kind of like why should you do business with this guy? Then I have
Okay.
like my core skills, and then I have a row dedicated. It literally says select achievements, and it's all the achievements that I've accomplished throughout the years over the companies I've been with. And again, they're catered to the job. Let's go with the corporate training perspective. So if I'm looking for a corporate training job, what I'll do is I'll list a section that says here's my achievements, and then right below there I put my work history. So the idea is I'm saying who cares where I work? Here's the stuff I've done over the years. To your point with the various resume formats, um, I also have a text version of my resume, a text file, because when you go to upload them to these automated applicant tracking systems, uh, tables don't cooperate very well. Sometimes they're just horrible to upload. I'll admit, I'm sorry. Somebody's going to come after me for this, but Taleo, they're horrible. Sorry. Just an absolute brutal applicant tracking system. Doesn't seem to work. So I agree with you. There's really no one size fits all solution when it comes to uploading it. So I try to tell people, create a couple versions of it. I have one that I just post out online. It's just floating around. It's just, here it is. But when I apply a specific company, depends on what they want. I normally go with the text file because I can just extract out pieces that I want, just do a copy and paste. Not the best, but it seems to work.
Yeah, I just think it would be nice if it was something more like a desktop publishing thing
Mm,
combined with almost a database where you could say, uh, put everything in there and say, I want a technical version of my resume. Boom, but it
yeah.
pulls out the relevant things and just
Mm,
kind of puts them together because it is a lot of work. And I feel like the resumes don't get the attention they should. I think that most people learn too late in life, and I think people are learning it quicker now. Is that
mhm.
networking really is the key,
No doubt. No doubt.
and
No doubt.
I learned that far too late in life,
Yep.
and
Hmm.
I never talked to anybody about with it in mind of what I could gain from the relationship other than friendship or knowledge.
Hmm.
And later on, I realized, well, this person works here, and it
Absolutely.
becomes a really valuable skill. Are younger people still doing resumes as much? I mean,
To a degree,
do they
yeah.
just hold their phones up to each other, or what do they
I
do?
I don't know. I've never seen that. I know most of them are still working on resumes. When I was over at the YMCA, I had a couple um, people I work with, some coworkers there that were actually graduating, and they were still putting their resume together. And I talked to one guy. He said, can you help me with this?" And I kind of walked him through essentially what you and I said. So I think the short answer is yes, they are still putting resumes together. As to what format, I don't know. The funny thing is, now I think about it, I talked to a lot of younger college age people, and I asked them, I said, "Are you on LinkedIn?" And my small sample set of responses, they basically said, "No, what is it?" I was about floored. I'm like, "Wait a minute, what did you just say? You don't know what LinkedIn is? Hello." Now, I could be wrong, but that's been my experience. Like, they had absolutely no clue, and I told every young person I work with, I said, "You've gotta get on there now." I said, "You just do not understand what you're missing out on." And not from a social standpoint, just more from a professional perspective, because I know if you go to interview for most at a company, they're gonna look you up. Um, so where'd you rather have them find you? Instagram or LinkedIn? You tell me. So, you know,
Well, LinkedIn really gives you a chance to paint a picture yourself. What I like is you can get recommendations from people on there, which
absolutely.
I think do hold a lot of credibility.
Mhm,
And what I would tell people, my advice to people regarding LinkedIn is
mhm,
LinkedIn, in my opinion, is the opposite of Facebook. If you are not on Facebook, do not go near it. Walk away. If you are not on LinkedIn, you need to get on it. Uh,
agreed,
it's
agreed.
it's the exact opposite. If you're not on Facebook, stay off it.
I
Skip
agree.
it. But LinkedIn, you have to get on, and put your picture up, put up the skeleton
Mhm,
outline at least,
yep,
and pop in on it weekly or something like that. I don't get into the
absolutely.
whole culture. I know people who live on LinkedIn. No offense, but I know
Mhm,
people who just live on it, and um, I can't juggle all the cultures that these little worlds that they've created around us. And I'm not sure. I feel like more on LinkedIn that very often people are just trying to edge in to sell me something. You know, I,
I agree. I one of my pet peeves is I will typically I'll connect with anybody. There's been maybe a handful of people I can think back, like I could tell something seedy was going on, like it's just the profile didn't pass a sniff test, which is fine, so I'll ignore it. That said, 95% of times I will connect with somebody. What will get you ejected real quick is when I connect with you and you start spamming me. Um, Here's my contention. Just because I connect with you, that does not opt me into your email list. Oh no, it does not work like that. So I kind of think sometimes people use LinkedIn as the lazy man's MailChimp or Constant Contact. I'm like, no, 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 no. I didn't opt into your list. Let's not do that, please.
yeah,
I hate that.
that's the same thing with me. And it's like when you opt me into something, it's like very
Mm-hmm.
often when
Mm-hmm.
something I click to look at something and an
Mm-hmm.
ad pops up, I make a mental note to avoid that product
Yeah.
uh,
Oh
because I
yeah.
feel like it's a kind of violation. The um, do you see in the job market? I know they say statistics prior to what's going on now, but they said that more people were working and the economy was stronger than ever.
Mm-hmm.
But my interpretation of that was that there were more jobs, but people were doing three jobs that were beneath their skill set and their pay rate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people weren't having their one and done retirement job. They were working
Yeah.
three jobs now to make what they made 20 years ago or less than what they made 20 years ago. Is that true in your experience or some semblance of
I,
that?
I really haven't experienced that, to be honest with you. I think it's more
Okay.
of I think there is some validity to what you said. I just really can't comment on that just because I haven't seen that. Um, I really don't know. You got me. I really don't have an answer for that one. Sorry. I assume it's one of those things that I do know a lot of people. They were well, I guess in my circle of influence, they had a full time job, and a couple of them were working part time. Um, kind of where my mind goes is it because that's the best job that person could get? And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I'm just one of those
Right.
things that I think sometimes, people get to a certain level and they're comfortable. Um, so was it because they decided, you know what, I'm good here. Maybe I want a couple extra bucks. Did they just sort of say, did they resign themselves to this is the life they're going to have? I don't know. I kind of think that ties more into it than just saying, do I need more multiple jobs? I don't know. I don't mean to sound rough when I say that. It's just more of like it's that individual circumstances.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us have become society's becomes. You have a lot of people that are in a struggling actor
Mhm.
mentality, almost.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's and this is surely going to push people over the hump. What because uncharted territory. I mean,
Absolutely.
and like I said, I think especially hospitality industries, things like that. I think 1/3 of people just
Yeah.
aren't going back at
It,
all in that
it's
capacity.
it's interesting. I've had a lot of people knock on my door, and I understand. They're saying, "Hey, Dave, with this whole," I was about to sound very politically incorrect there. Sorry, this whole virus thing um, going on. They said, "What's happening with hiring managers?" And to be honest with you, I've actually seen both sides of the spectrum. One person I was talking to, very sharp guy. This guy was sharp as a tack. Uh, Good man. And he had an interview. He sent me a note in LinkedIn, said he got past the interviewing process, only to receive an email from that client base or from that potential employer saying, "Hey, we have a hiring freeze." So he kind of hit a roadblock, and that sort of stinks. By contrast, I had somebody the other day. She was starting a new job, and what happened was she was hired roughly 3 weeks ago, and she thought that since everything just sort of went on hold or fell apart or whatever, however you want to view it, they were going to rescind the offer. They didn't. They basically said, "Hey, we really want you, but what we're going to do is we're going to send a laptop to your house so you can learn how to get trained and up to speed while you're at your house." So what's that mean? I don't know. I wish I had an answer. I think some companies are probably more leaning towards the hiring freeze, furloughing side for now, which is just awful. That said, I think there's some hope out there. So it's not like it's a complete dead stop where people are saying sorry. I don't know. I always tell people just stick to the plan. It's you can't just sit around and just do a guessing game. Just stay at it, even if you know nothing's happening. At least once you start to get yourself in motion and you start to perpetuate things, you'll at least have something to build on when things open up. That's the way I view it. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have an answer for you. I really don't.
No, that's good advice, though. That's good
Thanks.
advice. Well, what I'd like to do is at some point when the
Yeah.
chaos is over or something, maybe we can do something in the studio and
Yeah.
talk
Sure.
about your other things, your passions. You've got a lot of stuff you do, and
Yeah.
uh, we were talking about dealing with this thing and
Hmm.
prepping, and prepping gets such bad connotations.
Yeah.
Because whenever you say it, people think of a couple things.
Mhm.
They think of somebody who belongs to some militia group in the woods. They think of somebody who is hoarding sardine tins or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But there's so many misnomers, whereas it's just somebody that wants to be prepared if something
Yeah.
like this happens. It's extended for a period of time.
Yeah.
When the person has got 3 days of food in their
Yeah.
household, top.
I'll say this. And first off, I'm sure I didn't know I'd be on camera because I'm sure his t-shirts probably rub some people the wrong way. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this feels really good. Um, if I can, I'll comment on the whole prepping thing. Um, I kind of view myself as more of a quote unquote pseudo prepper. Um, if I can, I'll go back to, and I'll sort of talk a little bit more. I'll open up personally. Um, I'll get somewhat political, just because I think it's fun to sort of kind of rub things, to stir pot a little bit. I remember back in 2005, Mark, when Katrina hit, and my daughter was just born. And now, granted, if you remember the newscast that came out of that time, they were talking about all the chaos there, and I was looking at that as objective as I could and say, you know what? Yes, there's a lot of media hype there. I know they're trying to get the ratings. I get all that. You don't know the truth because things are being reported several times over. Who knows? That said, I took a real long thought process and I said, okay, if stuff was to hit the fan around here at some point, my feeble martial arts skills are not going to stop whatever decides to come through that door. Because I know one thing: bad guys don't fight fair. There is no such thing as a fair fight. They just fight, and their whole mindset is just overwhelm you. So even though I grew up in a household my father was ex-Navy. He served in Korea. My mother was very anti-gun. So you can see the duality on that one. Um, I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, let's just think about this. So I started actually getting into shooting, only because I looked at it from your classic home defense perspective. And I started taking classes because I said I never handled a weapon before. I don't want to be one of these renegade guys who just gets a gun, has no idea what I'm doing, and just try to be cool. So I spent a lot of time learning how it works. That moved on to like more tactical shooting. I'm not that good, but I like to think I can kind of, if things go wrong, take care of business. I never want to find myself on that side. God forbid. I never want to find myself having to make that decision of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I think most sane people are like that. Like, I guess I heard it said before. I forget who said this. I had to look up the person who said the quote, but the quote is: the true warrior fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but he fights because he loves what's behind him. And that's the sort of side I fall on. I don't hate anybody really. I just love what's behind me, and I'll do whatever I have to protect them. So spinning that back into prepping, I started thinking, I'm like, well, okay, if things start going south, let's just stock up a little bit. And ironically, back in January, call it depression or just my paranoia, I don't know what you want to call it. Um, I went to the store and I bought a ton of stuff. I just bought like all kinds of frozen meat and like, canned goods and all that other kind of stuff and disposable stuff. And my wife I came home and started bringing all the stuff in the house. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I said, who knows? And she's like, are you okay? I said, let's just wait and see. Well, fast forward a couple weeks. Next thing you know, it's like you couldn't buy half that stuff. And I tried to balance it out in such a way. I'm like, well, okay, let's try to get about 3 months worth of food. If things get rough, I might be living on rice and cereal. Okay, but at least I'll be alive. But yeah, I think it's one of those things when it comes to prepping. I agree. They kind of get a bad rap. There's sure as people that go overboard, no doubt. I don't have a cabin in the woods with some bunker that I go to, but just to, keep myself alive.
Well, and that's just survival. That's
Sure.
everybody is a prepper to some degree. They want to make it
Yeah.
home, and they do it. Some people do it to more extensive degrees. And what? See, I was raised by Depression era people and
Mm,
worked a farm, and
mm,
this is just normal day to day practices on the farm.
mhm,
You have stuff in place, and
mhm.
you know the people that do this aren't. And I never understood the whole prepping for end of days because who wants to be around?
No, I don't.
Under those circumstances, you
No,
just
no,
you just want to be able to make it through a burp in the system like this.
I
Uh,
agree. Yeah,
but
I agree.
and nobody ever went to a minimalist for
Mhm.
anything in a catastrophe because they don't have anything.
That's
Uh,
very true. Very true.
uh, and I've been dropping stuff off at people's houses
Absolutely.
and helping them out and uh, moderately depleting my stock
Mhm.
to get everybody a little bit. And I
Sure.
think that uh, I think that if we all do that, and help each other, we'll all be better for it. But this
Agreed.
should wake people up. Now, the madness that came out where people decided that they were going to use one roll of toilet paper a day or whatever. They thought this
Uh-huh.
was this super diarrhea virus. I don't know where
Yeah.
that came from, but they're just idiots, and they don't represent any faction of people because people that actually are quote preppers, whether you like the word or not, they weren't
Mhm.
in line at the store getting stuff. They'd already gotten it.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it's funny because, I saw somewhere online, somebody put a quote that they were talking about preppers, and they said, "The preppers must be feeling pretty smug right now." I don't know if I go with the word smug. The word that came to my mind was more vindicated, just because they were getting such a bad rap. And again, I'm looking more what I call the I think we identify as the sane prepper, not the one who's just, "Oh my gosh, some guy sitting in some bunker somewhere. Fine, that's their decision." But I think the sane prepper is more of like, you know what? I'm not standing in line for this nonsense. I don't have to sweat it, which I think is kind of where you and I fall. So maybe we're
yeah, I
vindicated.
mean, there, there's some of it that scares me. The reactions of people. It scares me when I see people lining up to buy guns. Because
Yeah,
I don't think that's the time to get a gun. I don't think that's the mindset to get a gun under. You're not going to have the right training or be the right.
no,
I feel the
no,
exact same way when I see people lining up to buy shovels. I think, what happened to
yeah,
the old shovels? Why is there a shovel rush? And I don't understand why people. There's some tools. So the way I was raised, a firearm was a tool, effectively.
I agree.
Uh,
Agreed.
you
Yep.
know,
I,
and
I'm the, I'm the exact same way. Well, I assume you shot some firearms, and if some of the law enforcement people I talk to, I've worked with some SWAT guys, and not I've trained with them to a degree, but most of the training I've gotten from those guys. And there's your standard rules of firearms. And usually when something goes wrong, you can always trace it back to something just going wrong, somebody just doing something stupid. Um, but yeah, I agree. It's just a tool. Going back to your point of shovels, Mark, I've had the same shovel in my house to shovel snow for the past 10 years. I don't get why I that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, why are you buying
I don't
another shovel
understand that.
after the one from last year?
I have this shovel that my dad brought when we moved into the house that he brought from the last house. I,
Yeah,
I bought I bought another shovel because that shovel was just too antiquated, but I used
yeah,
it sometimes. But
yeah.
I don't understand this. Every year you have to go buy two shovels. I don't understand this. I've got to go buy four rifles because what's going to and it's not just people that are first time gun buyers. It's people
Oh,
that
sure.
want to buy additional guns, and I
Yeah.
don't understand why there's that rush. I have what I need, and that's all I
Mhm.
need.
Yeah. It's the same way over here. This is gonna sound terrible, but I was joking to somebody one day, and they said, "What happens if somebody breaks in your house?" I said, "Well, assuming I'm able to defend myself," I said, that person or people will get three settings. They get standard round, high powered, and maximum carnage. And that's kind of the way I view things. Again, I say it somewhat tongue in cheek. I never want to find myself in that position. That said, I think there is some collectors out there that they like to collect guns or whatever just because it's fun. I'm in the
Yeah.
same camp you are. I have more than what I need. Um, That's fine. I know my neighbor a couple doors down. I was talking to him one day. I kind of knew, he was in this kind of stuff. But I started talking to him. I said, do you carry? Um, and that just opened the floodgates. Next thing you know, he's talking to me all through his collection. He's got I won't tell you how many rounds he has. I was like, whoa, dude, you're ready. But it was interesting. Let's say the least.
Yeah, it's just I think people open up too quickly. I know somebody who put pictures of all their guns on Facebook, but they also put on when they go on vacation, and the
Yeah.
two tied together at some point, and they supplied the community at large with some guns at some point, and I think that's just silliness.
Well, I tend to take a page out of some of the humbly said I've trained in something called Russian Sistema, which gets a knock online. I get that. One thing they always taught me, and this is more of you can even bring it into more of the American perspective. They always teach you that you want to be the gray man. You just want to be the guy who just no one draws attention to you. You don't want to be the one standing out in any way.
Right.
So to your point of people being out on Facebook, hey, look what I have. I'm like, dude, you're advertising. You kidding me? Why are you doing that? No, you just want to be the one who stands there. No one notices you. You're like just a hole in the water. Just no one knows you're there. And that's exactly what I strive for. Just walk right on by like he was never there. You stand right next to me, don't even know I'm there. That's what I strive for.
Right. I don't believe anybody should ever know. I don't believe in this open carry stuff. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that you should be, have a gun out in the open, sitting at the diner eating a piece of pie, because there's somebody that comes in knows there's a gun there.
It's like, look, where I'm going for you first.
yeah, I'm going for you. It should not be known, and I think what would keep people under control is if they had no knowledge of what anybody was capable of in a room that they came into to start trouble.
Exactly, and you know the strategy. It's the ones that are always run their mouths. They're not the ones you got to worry about. It's always the quiet ones. It's the ones sitting there just not even, everything's going heading south, hell in a handbasket basically, and the one person just sits there and doesn't react. It's like, okay, this person knows something, because they're not they're way too subdued in their reactions. So it's always the quiet ones you watch. At least that's my belief.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, but when the world gets a little more normal, let's talk some more about this.
Yeah, definitely.
It sounds like a good topic. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's do okay for you. Hopefully I wasn't talking too much. I like to talk, as you can tell.
Yeah, no, that's words are our business, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The right ones, I'm sorry.
And I have you back on again.
Yeah, definitely, man.
When things are a little more calm, back to normal.
Yeah. I'm just sorry it's taking so long, because I was, really looking forward to this. It just, we were having so much time getting coordinated. I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to think I'm talking to him. And I really wanted to come in studio to see it, because I was worried about the audio quality. Obviously I think you have an audio background, if I'm not mistaken. So
a little bit. I've learned over the years. It's got a little warble in it, but I would like to get you in the studio and just do an overview. It's a different atmosphere when you're sitting there. This is better than just on the phone, but it's a different atmosphere when you're sitting across from a person talking to them.
Yeah, my goal was not to use this equipment. I really wanted to give you some good audio, just because if I'd had my headset on, it would probably sound even more tinny, which I didn't want to do. I'm not sure if you're recording on 2 separate tracks or whatever, but I was hoping to say, you know what, let's give this guy something good to work with. So that was my whole objective.
The only problem with this is you're getting a little warble from bandwidth. It's a bandwidth issue.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, somebody at your house is binge watching something over.
I got a teenage daughter. She's never on her phone. My son, no, he doesn't game. My wife, she's probably. I mean, please. I think he's watching Netflix at this stage of the game. I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. No, we'll hook up in the studio, and
definitely, man.
Thank you very much for your time, and I'll let you know when this is going to air if it goes onto the radio station.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
It's online right now if you want to grab it. As soon as I click the button, it'll be there.
Oh, awesome, man. Thank you so much. How many people do we have tonight? Did you have a count, or just
I don't pay attention. It's depressing. One of my stupid friends was on here posting stupid questions. Whenever I do something, if I'm doing an interview, if I'm on the news or something, my friends will text me or call me on the phone. Yeah, just to annoy me and throw me off my game. It's like a gun, it's like my ex will send me something and say, "So, do you go to the barber anymore, or what's the deal?" And it's like just to affect my mood.
It's kind of like that thing in college. Circle here if you read that far, right? Are you actually paying attention?
Yeah.
It's teasing. So no, it's fair. Definitely, man. Have to get together again. Definitely, no problem there.
Okay. Well, take care. Stay safe.
All right, man. Hey, Mark. Thanks for your time tonight. All right. Seriously, you be safe. Hopefully, it ends soon. We can actually meet face to face.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, man. Take care of yourself, Mark. Thanks again. Take care now.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye.